First of all, welcome, and it is really nice to have all the stakeholders in this capacity building workshop. Today's topic actually is related to the interdepartmental coordination and policy and governance issues in city-based air quality management. I think those who have attended the first induction training, they were really given a good exposure about policy and governance, and also various aspects of the air quality, ambient air quality, particularly the measurements, the concept of source apportionment, concept of the action plan, different stakeholders, all those things was given. So I will try to cover that also in some way. So this is a slide which is improved from the last presentation with some additions. These are the poses, actually the questions when I start with any air quality sort of lecture, that the first question always comes because we are getting too much of negative publicity all over the world because of air pollution. Out of 20 maximum air polluted cities, we have 18. That distinction is with India. Why it is so? The one reason could be we are monitoring it in a more effective and a very efficient manner. That could be it. But what is the status of my city? How it stands compared to other cities? Like if some people are from northern India, they will, northern Indian air pollution, particularly in winter, is always debated, but only Delhi is talked about. Nobody talks about Jalandhar or Ludhiana or Karnal, nobody talks about. Delhi is in limelight. So when I talk about air pollution, I must know what is the status of my city. The most important part is what is air pollution? I think this was discussed in the first training program in detail, and from law point of view, we will also see a little bit. But now when we are entering into this phase of air pollution control, we are relatively much informed about what is air pollution and where my city stands actually. The next question, logical question comes is, who is responsible for this? And that's very obvious questions, and always the blame goes to vehicles or maybe solid waste burning, the industries. But now with so much of water flow on with National Air Action Plan, we know what are the sources of air pollution. The road dust resuspension, the construction activities, the material handling systems, so many other things, even the DG sets. There are so many sources which are contributing to the air pollution of the city. Then obviously again the next question, who can control this? Now obviously it is we the people of India. Obviously we have to control it. Nobody else will come from outside and do it. But yes, there are sectoral initiatives which needs to be taken. Like if we are talking about the vehicles, then we have pollution under control system. Then if we are talking about traffic, there is a traffic police to remove the congestion. The road condition, the urban local body is looking into it. So we practically know now who can lead the efforts towards the control of this air pollution. But the next question logically, even if I do, whether the air quality will improve. That's a big $1 million question. We are spending so much of money, we are doing many works, everybody of you are attending this course, and in spite of that, and suppose whether the air quality will improve. The challenge is enormous. And I think the source apportionment study, the introduction, will give you an idea about how much improvement you can make. So analytical modeling is available. But it is a huge challenge because there is continuous addition in the quantum of pollution which is released in them. Our cities are growing in terms of population. Similarly, a lot of infrastructure is being developed, number of cars is increasing, our economic status is improving, so a lot of waste is being generated. So on one side, we are trying to control the pollution. On the other side, the sources of pollution are increasing in quantum and quantity, both. So what I can do? So basically, this entire 5 days workshop will answer this particular question, what I can do now. So you will be dealing with multiple issues. Madam will talk about how the insight measurements, insight control system should be done, how they should be analyzed for their efficacy and all others. So definitely you are going to learn a lot many things about that. Similarly, if I can see many departments having a role in any one of the action. Like you have action plan, which is quite elaborate, having multiple actions and multiple stakeholders. Then actually here the game starts, because you have multiple stakeholders, and then when so many departments or government agencies come together, the coordination is a very important activity. So the emerging points actually, because this is not the first time we are talking about air pollution in the cities. We are talking since 2005 yearly. Because there was a petition, this MC Mehta case, and initially 16 cities of the country were identified as air polluted cities. And then the action plan was prepared, and so many activities have been carried, particularly like IPCA in Delhi, Northern India. So much of experience we have. But at the same time, we have these action plans in our hand and we want to implement it. So which action should be prioritized? Again, a question mark. And first 2 slides are questions actually, which will set the tone for discussions. And definitely when the actions are to be prioritized, who will decide, on what basis, the decision-making process, this has to be explained to all the stakeholders. Everybody must know from where the decision has come. And in fact, this particular program tries to emphasize that every action is an evidence-based or science-based action. It's not an arbitrary decision taken by some person. There is a structure for taking a decision, and accordingly the decisions are implemented. Another important aspect which actually came from Sakshi's presentation also, that the efficacy of the entire action plan is very important, and it is the basis for release of the funds also. So monitoring and evaluation forms a key for implementation of this action plan. How to ensure such performance? Actually, this is another issue, because multiple cities will be implementing the similar actions like road cleaning activities. Maybe Visakhapatnam will have the same instruments or equipments. Pune may have the same instrument, but the efficacy will be definitely different, because there will be an human element in that. So QA/QC, the performance evaluation, will also play an important role in ensuring the performance of every action. As I mentioned, there will be coordination will be required. Who will do that? How frequently it will be done? And this is the beauty of this present program actually. We see the NCAP program, it tries to bring all the stakeholders together, share but equal responsibility. And then it is definitely hope that there will be better implementations of the various action plans. Earlier, the action plans were solely designed and implemented by the state boards as well as the Central Pollution Control Board. But now all the stakeholders, including the municipal corporation, district administration, police authority, RTO, everybody is on board. Then how to measure the outcomes? As you have seen, the release of the funds is directly linked to A, B, C, D criteria. First, A, B, C will be used in the first year, and then next on years onward, maybe C and D will be used. So definitely you need some definite outcome for claiming that, okay, you're done or you're taken certain actions under this action plan. And then we need to change our approach to the enforcement, because today we are talking about a lot of liberties, we are talking about civil rights. So the enforcement cannot be arbitrary. There will be challenges, there will be court cases. And definitely when we are talking about enforcement, particularly the regulatory authorities, we need to follow certain protocol. And what new should be done? Because we have already tried this action plan so many times, we are bringing it in a different texture altogether. But yes, innovation will play a very critical role. Today, India is having such a big strength in innovation and startups. So, and already CPCB has launched hackathon and other things also in innovation in air quality management. So I am sure the innovation, particularly the local level innovations, will play an important role. And the last quote actually, which is very famous, that champions don't do different things. They do the things differently. That is what we are thinking. We have to think that we are doing something good for the society. Now, many of you may be aware of this. Again, this was also taken in the first session, that the air quality improvement action plans actually started from the Supreme Court order of 2002 in this MC Mehta petition 13029 of 1985, where 16 cities were declared as air polluted city, identified rather as air polluted cities, and action plans were prepared for that, and there was different monitoring mechanism for those action plans. As a part of technical updation of the knowledge, source apportionment studies was carried out from 2007 to 2009 by CPCB with the help of IITs as well as TERI as well as ARAI. And this study actually paved the way for huge sort of research activities in air quality management in terms of analysis, in terms of modeling, in terms of designing the actions. So these reports were really the milestone in air quality science in the country. These actions were identified, and actions were also designed to have certain specific outcomes also. But the problem what we could see at that point of time is, though we can design certain actions, the implementation of those actions need multi-stakeholder engagement. It is not only the job of the pollution control boards. You need everybody together in the entire process. And also the source apportionment and subsequent actions ensure that there is senior level engagement at the state level also. So committees under the chief secretary, committees under the environment secretaries were also formed. But I don't think much traction was available on that action plans. And then the source apportionment studies also help to understand the source profiles of different sources also, emission sources. And that really helped to carry out a good quality, credible emission inventory, and which will further be targeted or enforced by the Pollution Control Board to achieve substantial improvement in the source reduction. So as many of you were not there in the first session, I would like to take this slide, which personally I just wanted to emphasize to each and every one, is in the Constitution of India, we have provisions for environment. Okay. The first provision, which is not direct provision, but which has been expanded by the Supreme Court, is basically a fundamental right of life, which is expanded for the environmental ground. So today, having a clean environment is a fundamental right. So Article 21 of the Constitution, which is related to the right of life, has been expanded to include right to have a clean and pollution-free environment. So it's our fundamental right, and that's why citizens can go to the superior courts, the constitutional courts, as well as NGT, seeking redressal of their complaint. So if they don't get the good air quality, they can approach to the judicial authority. The second direct principle is directive principles of the state policy, which is a sort of aspirational value, is Article 48A, where states shall endeavor to protect and improve environment and safeguard the forest and wildlife in the country. But now the courts have now expanded this right to life, that is fundamental right to us. Naturally, the Article 48A is also coming in the same line. But the third, which is very important, and normally many of us try to not to discuss this, is having a clean environment is not only our right, but it is also our duty to maintain that environment. So every citizen of the country has a duty to protect and improve the natural environment, including forests, lakes, rivers, wildlife, and most importantly, to have a compassion for the living creatures. So this is very comprehensive provision, and which has given a lot of sort of responsibility to each of us to protect and improve the natural environment. So on one side, we have a fundamental right to have a clean environment. And on the other side, we have a fundamental duty to protect and improve the natural environment. So we can't say all the time that, okay, government has to take care of it. No, as a citizen, we are responsible to protect and improve the natural environment. So when we see about overall governance principle, those who are not from pollution control boards, they may like to know this, that we are always talking about sustainable development. That's a very buzzword actually. Everywhere we are talking about sustainable development. But what it is nothing but it has two doctrines. The first doctrine is intragenerational responsibility. This simply means we have borrowed this earth from our future generations. Okay, so when we are passing on the earth to them, it should be at least of the same quality what we received, if not better. And that's a very challenging proposition. The second one is public trust doctrine, which is across all the natural resources, where the natural resources in terms of water, in terms of air, is a public trust. It's a public property, and the government is holding it as a trustee. And that's why the government is authorized to give licenses and permits to pollute actually. If you see the environmental clearance, or if you see the UC certificate, or if you see the consent, you are allowed to discharge some pollutant into the environment. And that is given under this doctrine of public trust. Okay. The next one is principles of sustainable development. There are three principles. Actually, there are nearly 6, but I'm taking 3 only. The polluter pays principle is being debated a lot, and I think that is one of the important tools through which we can definitely enforce this action plan on the ground. It simply says the person who pollutes, he has to pay. So if somebody throws the plastic bag, he will be penalized for that, something like that. But it is very difficult in practice, because if the polluter will challenge such orders, he will say, I have not polluted, somebody else has done it. So you need to create a lot of data, a lot of information, who has polluted, how much he has polluted, whether it has caused environmental pollution or damage. All those things come subsequently as a part of the scientific exercise. Then there is a precautionary principle. This is very important. Generally, the environment is considered sacrosanct, and if any degradation happens, then it is just impossible to bring the original conditions. Like if you cut the forest, you can grow the trees there. You can create a forest in your lifetime. It will take ages and ages to do. Or if you pollute the groundwater, it will be very, very difficult to recuperate that groundwater quality. So it's the best way is not to do it. And that is basically the precautionary principle. So it is nothing but a safety margin. And then the onus of proof. So in case of environment, the developer or a person who is carrying out the development, he has to show that his actions are environmentally benign. His actions will not damage the environment. And that's why if you see the building permissions or the what we call environmental clearance is based on this. He has to show that, okay, I will carry out the development activity, but my activities will not cause damage to the environment. Now, if you see the regulatory framework, we have multiple regulations on air quality, including air, which is a very special act, Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1981. Then we have Environment Protection Act 1986. And both these acts are under the special provision of the Constitution, Article 253 and 54, giving effect to the international agreements. So this is very important. And then we have local bodies regulation, we have Motor Vehicles Act, Fuel Regulation Act, EIA, and numerous actually. Then we have boilers and others. And similarly, there are several complementary enabling provisions in the CPC, CRPC, and IPC also. And most importantly, local body regulations. In fact, municipal bylaws have tremendous effective powers and provisions which can be used very effectively for the control of not only air pollution, but all sorts of pollution.
Okay.
Nuisance removal. So now when we are coming to the, when we are looking into, just a minute, environment and particularly the air quality, it is a science, and it's not simple administrative mechanism which is involved in the action planning. It requires a lot of science to be understood for effective air quality management. The most important part is it is an evolving science. We don't know how many air pollutants are there, because today we are mainly talking about the dust, that is particulates, and maybe to some extent sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and some few pollutants. But the number of pollutants which are of concern is increasing day by day. Like volatile organics, within the volatiles also, we are talking about chlorinated compounds and others, and how they are affecting our health directly. Many of the volatiles are carcinogenic, and then definitely they are being looked into detail. The second part is that is called as a prediction of impacts. So when we talk about prediction of impacts, like some industry is going to be set up at some location, then whether it will have an adverse impact in the surrounding. So basically that type of studies and science is really one of the important research area, and those who are from academic institutes, they are very well aware about the prediction modeling as well as impact assessment procedure also here. And that's why most of the time the prevention, that is protection, is priority than the control. First of all, don't allow it to happen. And then the control, where if the pollution is generated, then you control it with different strategies. And then it also involves uncertainty. And particularly in air pollution, particularly air pollution modeling, there are so many factors which are influencing the air quality dispersal, that there is a huge uncertainty in the predictions. It's something like the fortune. So two principles are actually taken into account. One is, yes, it is well accepted, there will be uncertainty, but we can err on the side of environment. So that's a precautionary approach. And second is, the environment is a party in absentia in any decision-making process. So if you are taking any decision, the environment is not before you. You have to represent the environment in the entire decision-making process. So all the stakeholders who are attending the workshop, actually, this is very important, that you need to plead for environment, not for yourself. You are supposed to plead for environment. And nowadays we are talking about science-based actions, because administratively so many things have been done, but we could not get the success. And there was always a debate, we can go to the moon, but we are not able to solve our pollution problems. So a lot of emphasis is given on these science-based decision-making, science-based regulatory actions. And I think this workshop is one of the important steps for that. Now, when we talk about air quality governance, it has multiple components. All of you may be aware of these slides, but firstly, it requires the government to specify the air quality standards, ambient air quality standards. Now, there are multiple methods for that. Public health objectives, then we have cost-benefit ratios. There are multiple ways of defining the standards. I'm not going into that, but the first and foremost requirement, there has to be a ambient air quality standards, because every action will be related to that. Our ultimate objective will be to achieve that type of standards in a certain time frame. The second important part is defining the institutional responsibility for those standards. As on today, as per the Air Act, the responsibility lies with the state pollution control boards and the center pollution control. But ultimately, when the Supreme Court has notified it as a fundamental duty, a fundamental right, the responsibility to ensure the fundamental right is respected lies with the government. Not only government, but all the state agencies. be it urban local body or be it a government institution, academic institution, everybody has a responsibility to meet the environmental standards. The next one is monitoring mechanism. So how the monitoring, and you have seen the evaluation criteria A, B, C, D. The A starts with the monitoring part because we don't have a robust monitoring as on today. But now in last 2-3 years, we have been definitely upgrading our air quality monitoring system, and that is in place. But having a system is one thing, but continuously operating it in an efficient manner is a very challenging task. And that's why monitoring becomes an important tool in the entire action plan. And then penal actions. If you don't meet the standards, then what? Whether there should be fine, or whether there is environmental compensation, or whether there could be some prosecution or other things. If you have seen the current trends in the environmental jurisprudence, the NGT particularly is very clear on application of environmental compensation for the polluting industries today. Okay, like industrial areas or industries, and if you are not complying with the standards, then the certain environmental compensation is charged on them. I don't know, because this was a question asked in class for me. Then in that case, if the state is not able to achieve the air quality in the city, can it also be responsible for environmental compensation? So I think this is one question which is bound to come in coming days for all of you. And then finally, there needs to be an action plan for implementation of air quality standards. And those action plans need to define different regulatory measures as well as administrative measures, and which is transparent and participatory. It cannot be just one-sided action. And that's why all of us are sitting here today. Now, when we talk about air quality management cycle, it is a rounded thing, iterative type of, again and again, we have to go on improvising. But the core of entire activity is the scientific research. You need to be provided with good air quality data. You will need to be provided with good correlation between the air quality and health, and also the efficacy of the control measures and others. So the first step is establish the goals, that is the standards. The second is, once you know the standards, you need to know how the emissions should be reduced, and then design the control strategies, then implement the action plan, and undertake ongoing evaluation, performance appraisal of the actions. And if something is not really achieving, we have to go back again and again and all. So this is a very iterative process. It's not a one-stop go. This will be a part of the routine activities for years to come. This much I'm sure about that. So if you see the governance system, actually, it has 4 different types of things. One is the legislative requirements. Unfortunately, in India, we have very fantastic legislative framework related to environment and also air quality. So institutional responsibility, monitoring, accountability, public participation, everything is pretty well defined under the law. Okay, that's very important. In fact, if you see the Air Act, the SPCBs are mandated to disclose the air quality data to the people. That's one of the mandate. So all those provisions are already there. Then we have different sort of thing like air quality objectives, constitutional guarantees, we have that. And then finally, we have the policy and regulatory mechanisms, what we are talking today, and then the review process. So review of air quality standard is also a continuous process which is adopted by the CPCB. Already you must have been told in the last session that there is already a study going on for revisiting the air quality standards. IIT Kanpur is doing that one. So this is luckily all these activities we are having those activities, continuing with those activities. So now coming to the air quality improvement action plan. What we can see here is the air quality action plan needs to have a fundamental measures and new air quality actions. So basically we need to take some basic things like road cleaning, the vehicles, traffic. Practically everybody is aware about those actions. But at the same time, you have to think something innovative. Some new air quality actions need to be considered. Then most importantly, we need to consider about the commerce and business also. Because if you, like particularly DG set was an issue when the power supply was erratic, DG set were very common. So if you stop the DG set, the business will stop at that point of time. But luckily today we have better electricity supply. Then the actions need to be simplified. They should be understood by each and every one. It should not be a scientific language which should come in the action plan. The scientific knowledge has to be converted into wisdom and then shown to the people or used in the action plan. The action plan, all the actions need to be measurable, verifiable. What is indirectly monitorable. So there should not be any qualitative word like air quality should be improved. You can't work with this action or you can't work with these targets. You will have to say the air quality, the dust concentration in the air should reduce from 100 to 50 or something like that. And then the monitoring system should be available for that. And then we need to engage multiple stakeholders continuously. Public participation is very, very important. Unless the people are involved into the entire action planning. In fact, rather it is said that this air quality improvement action plan should be a people's movement. Unless it becomes a people movement, we will not get the great success. Today, everybody knows about Swachh Bharat. Everybody knows about Namami Gange. But similarly, I think today time has come that everybody in these 130 plus cities must know and must be involved in the air quality action. The long-term goals, actually, we need to integrate it with the climate change. That's very important. And some of the cities, particularly in Maharashtra, they are planning it to link it with the climate change as well as the net transition also in some cases. Just transition and net change. So this is a slide which I showed in the last session, but I'm just showing because many of you were not there. This shows the importance of the stakeholders in the entire action planning. When we talk about action plan, the action plan is at the top of the pyramid. But under that, there are so many activities going on, so many stakeholders are involved in that. The first and foremost is the environmental baseline data. That is nothing but air quality, ambient air quality, different pollutants in that. So environmental baseline plays an important role, and which can be possible only if we have a good, robust academic institutions and environmental research promoted by the regulators. So all the three blue one play a foundation role. And then over that, you have the rules and regulations, legislative structure, we have the public disclosures, and then we have public consultation and environmental consultants, because finally the design of actions need to be done by environment specialists. When I say environment, I include social also here, because social and health also, particularly for air, because we need to involve all these specialized fields also. So only after this tremendous coordination, a lot of significant research which is carried out over the years, then we can develop certain action plan, and which for implementation require huge stakeholder engagement also. So who are the stakeholders? I have listed few, but you may add it also. Like the first is the government, is obviously because it is a fundamental right, and definitely government is expected to ensure the compliance of the fundamental rights. Then we have the regulators in terms of SPCB and CPCB. And then we have local administration, local bodies, which are administrative authorities in the city, whether it is municipal council or municipal corporation. Finally, they are also accountable to maintain the air quality in their respective area. Then we have academic institutions, which play an important role in providing the entire knowledge base for this entire work. Then industry, when I say industry, industry means all the activities and processes which generate the air pollution. And then we have NGOs and CSOs, and then most importantly, all of us. I think we can't miss that. Okay, so there are multiple stakeholders which are engaged into the entire process. Now, this one is not directly related to the air pollution or neither related to the environment, but this is a new theme around which a lot of research is being carried out on any improvisation. So theory of change is a description why a particular way of working will be effective, showing how change happens in a short, medium, and long term to achieve intended impact. It can be represented in a visual diagram as a narrative or more. So this is nothing but work differently. So, but I don't know, many in the academic institutions will like to take this as a very immediate research, how the theory of change can be applied for effective implementation of the action plan in your city. I think that will be a very fantastic thing. Then a lot of things related to translation of the environment science knowledge into very effective communication tools, which can bring all the people on board. There can be proper dissemination of the information. There can be identification of the bottlenecks. So I think theory of change can be used as a tool to intervene or to improve the efficiency. The other thing which is debated a lot and also emphasized by the courts again and again is public participation and awareness. And now the NTAP or clean air has become a political agenda. When I say political agenda, not in real politics, it's an academic term, political agenda. So, but yes, even political parties are also concerned, and they talk a lot about air pollution, particularly in the northern India. So I'm sure that public participation and awareness is very important for success of any action plan. So, as I said, the action plans needs to be scaled as a public movement for success. Unless we get citizens on board, the air quality action plan will not be really successful, because finally we are doing it for people. So they need to be informed what is being planned, what is being done about. The second important aspect is meaningful consultation and involvement. So many from the Pollution Control Board, they might have heard about public hearing. Okay, but it's not hearing. Meaningful consultation is actually involvement of the people in the entire life cycle of the project. So even while making the action plan, the people must be involved in the process. Then continuous updation, monitoring, at all stages of this action plan implementation, people needs to be involved and consulted also. So it's a continuous process. The next one, which is very important, is actually grievance redressal mechanism. And it is being talked about, but a lot of emphasis is being given now. We have different portals where you can lodge the complaint and get the feedback very effectively. So that is one way of involving the people. If you get complaints redressed in time, there will be a lot of positivity about this action plan, and people will talk good about this, and naturally they will support this movement in a way. So grievance redressal is one of the, in fact, when we talk about any international projects or development projects, grievance redressal is something like an early alarm for resentment. So if you can tap those alarms at the initial stages only, you can definitely make suitable changes in the project, or you can accommodate those suggestions which are coming from the local people. And definitely, that's why I say data, information, knowledge is a cycle, but finally wisdom will come from the local population, because they are staying there, they are living there. So they will be having a lot of first-hand information which can help the action plan to like traffic congestion. Local people can have fantastic ideas. Not all of them will be great, but many of them can be taken on board if you are really serious about that. The next important question which always comes is the credibility and acceptance of any suggestion given by the government authorities. Having worked in the government authorities in the regulator, I face these challenges, because even if you do with a lot of sincerity, your actions and your proposals may not be accepted on its face value. And I think here the academic institutions, the AORs, will have to play a critical role because they have a different set of image before the people, and they can definitely validate and support the action plans so that credibility and acceptance will be improved on that. And as I said, there is huge opportunity to understand the social research in terms of health, informal sector, co-benefits. Informal sector is one of the area where not much work has been done in the air quality management. In solid waste, yes, but in air quality also, because if there are fires at the landfill, the first affected people are the informal people who are staying around the landfill sites. So there are multiple things which can be looked into, and that can be another potential area of research and which will improve the public participation. Now coming to the key definition of environment. These three definitions are very critical. I think I will give 1 minute for every one of you to read this definition, because again, this slide was shown in the last presentation, but again, repeating it. So you can see it here. Our legal definitions of environment, air, and water pollution are very, very innovative as well as comprehensive. In fact, they are being referred at international levels many times for two reasons. The first reason is they are not really anthropocentric. They are not only focusing on the human being. If you see the term definition of environment, it talks about air, water, air, land, and the interrelationship. So if you see in the sentence, the priority has been given to the natural environment, and then the human beings come or living creatures come. So that's one sign actually. The second part is the definitions are very comprehensive, but also futuristic and inclusive. Now, just for example, the environmental pollutants means any solid, liquid, or gaseous substance present. So this is one part, that any type of substance, if it is present in the environment, in such concentration. So here the monitoring and standards play an important role in such concentration. And the third part is may be or may tend to be. So it may be injurious today, or it might become injurious after 2 years. Okay, and then injurious. So you require a causal relationship between the substance in such concentration with the injury. So long chain to define. But yes, this is the correct and scientific way to define the environment and pollution. The similar definitions are present in air and water, may and may tend to be. So it is basically inclusive. When we talk about air quality improvement action plan, we are talking only about 2 parameters or 1 parameter, depending upon the action plan what we design. But in real sense, actually, we have 12 parameters in the ambient air quality standards, and all those parameters will have to be met at all the times. That's very important. Now, coming to the responsibilities. Now we are going into the stakeholders' role. Now there are legal responsibilities, okay, for implementation of the ambient air quality standard. The states have responsibility in India, definitely, because having clean environment is a fundamental right, and ensuring the compliance of the fundamental right is an obligation on the state. So definitely no doubt about that. But the state has to intervene at different point of time, as if something is not correct, then they will have to inform to the local authority, they will have to inform the concerned regulatory agency to take action, and finally they will have to take a very pivotal role in the entire planning. Similarly, the individual entities are also required, like some industries there, they are required to meet the source specific standards like thermal power plants, if they are there, they have to meet the emission standards specified for them. They need to take the necessary permits from SPCB, CPCB, local body. They need to conduct the self-monitoring. And most importantly, if something goes wrong, if the emissions are excessive or there is some problem, they have to take voluntary actions. They can't just wait the government to do something. And that is what I said, the fundamental duty. And then the next part is administratively, you need to provide the monitoring requirements. So you must set up the air quality monitoring networks, and then also try to use that data effectively to understand what are trends in the air quality management, disclose it for the local people so that everybody is well aware about the status of the air quality. And then procedural is very important, because as an individual, I'm having a right to know what is the clean environment. So information, participation, and justice is the last phase, where actually access to information is very, very important, and Air Act, Environment Act provides disclosure of information. And in fact, those acts have come well before the right to information. So Air Act and Environment Act mandates that the environmental quality of the country or of the city has to be disclosed to the people. Then access to the participation in environmental decision making. We have this provision in environmental impact assessment, where people participate in the process, but not decision making, but through the public hearing and public consultation. And then finally, we have the access to justice. And I think this is very important step in the environmental justice in the country, that we have National Green Tribunal, where people can approach for the non-compliance. They can approach against the government for not or failing to comply or ensure the fundamental right of having clean air or clean environment, and respective industry or a respective activity for causing excessive pollution. So all the three parts, luckily, we have in our legal system. Now, I'm not going to go much detail into that, but I think all of you are aware about air quality indexes, how it has been developed. And in fact, 27% of the countries use air quality indexing, because if you show the raw data, it will not be really useful to everyone. But if you develop air quality index, which is a very complicated job, it is very site specific, it is also country specific depending upon the mandate and the priorities. And CPCB has already notified these tools, and they are available on their website also. So all of you are aware about these colors and everything. And in fact, this is what the best thing which has happened from the environmental science point of view in the last couple of years. Every channel, news channel, even newspapers talk about air quality index, how it is, oh, it has gone more than 400, it has gone more than 300. So they also talk the language of the air quality index. But there is always a scope to improve the overall system of air quality indexing. Number of base parameters can be increased. And there are multiple improvements at this level, but I think CPCB has already started some work on that. So coming to the Air Act, just to give a brief introduction, we have covered this actual definition, but just to those who are not from the pollution control boards, I think this will be good for them. The Air Act section 16 defines the functions of the central board, which talks about their mandate is to improve the quality of the air and to prevent and control abate air pollution in the country. Very simple mandate, but simple things are difficult to achieve. And then in the functions of the state board, we have this action planning, and then inspection standards, and then also sort of advise the state government and also perform the duties as may be necessary. And most importantly, if you can see here, I think I will just go for that. Yeah. So now coming to the enforcement. Okay. Here, I think we are crossing the second milestone. We have seen the regulation, we have seen the standards, as well as the need of following the environmental justice system. And then we have these principles of enforcement. So no inspection shall be carried out without a reason, authorization and record. This is one important milestone. Unless and until you have this robust enforcement protocol, there will not be a support from local people as well as different stakeholders. And regulators should provide authoritative, accessible advice. That's important. And also those who are regular defaulters, they should be dealt with heavy penalties, actually, deterrent sanctions also. So multiple enforcement issues like multiple sources, particularly in case of city, we have multiple sources, the expanding definition of air pollutants. We have new air pollutants also because smell and other things are also, if there is a solid waste burning, you get different types of volatiles and other things also. Then we have problems about CEMS or CAQMS, whether they are in operation, because many of the urban local bodies have installed the CAQMS, and those are very complicated machines. And the QAQC of that CAQMS is an important task. And I think I really wish that all the academic institutes over here, they should actively develop their capacity in QAQC of the continuous ambient air quality monitoring system. So these are multiple sources we have. All of us know that wood burning and other things like roads, industries, construction activities, burning of waste, vehicles, traffic congestions. So there are multiple sources. And when we talk about local level action plan, we have multiple stakeholders in each of these activities. And many of these activities are related to each other also. So it's a very complex game at the site, in the field. It's very easy to say, okay, you achieve this target, but how to achieve that? Because multiple stakeholders are there, multiple agencies are there. Everyone is having his own mandate. Everybody has his own way of doing the things, their protocol. Everyone has different penal processes. So sometimes it becomes really siloed operations in different stakeholders. But if we really want to achieve the outcomes of the air quality action plan, we have to take a very cohesive way. So just for example, I'll just put some examples for your thought. It can be improved upon. I'm not claiming it is perfect. But I think we can think about, because finally, if you see the ranking A, B, C, D, the D part, which is reduction in the source strength, I think that carries the weight for years to come. And I think if you really want to reduce the quantum of air pollution load, I think we'll have to take a very holistic and integrated approach. So if you think road as a source of air pollution, then there are multiple ways of or issues related to it. The first one is the road design, widening, what type of surface it should have, whether it should have concrete or whether it should have a black tar. Frequent digging, it is one of the issues. I think everybody will agree. Once a road is laid, I think within 7 days, some other department will come and dig the road. And that digging will generate a lot of dust, a lot of traffic congestion and other things also. Then we have road cleaning process. So frequency, method, efficiency, disposal of waste collected. So in the road cleaning, dust is collected and kept at the border or edge. And within 2-3 days, if it is not lifted properly, again, it is coming back into the system. So resuspension of dust. Then road condition is very important, whether roads are good, pothole free, so that there is smooth traffic and there is no congestion. And as you are aware, if the best way to get lesser automobile exhaust emission is to have a constant ride. That's very important. And then we have various tools to reduce the congestion in terms of traffic signals or roundabouts. So whether they're effective, traffic flow based, sensitive to diagonal traffic loads. So there has to be intelligent traffic signals. A lot of IoT improvements are already there. But I think this is one way where we can effectively control the localized hotspots of air pollution. But this is not easy, because if you want to see the mandate, then we have roads department of ULB, or could be for the state government, because many of the state highways or national highways are passing through the city. So the road maintenance is with the different department altogether. Then we have solid waste cell, because even if you collect the uh, waste, if you clean the road and find out some waste, the ULB need to provide suitable place for its dumping also. That's important. Then we have traffic police, then electrical water supply department who will dig the road. And then finally, we need to have town planning cell of the government also, because how much should be the width of the road and other things. So planning is also involved into the entire thing. So if you see, if you want to deal with the road from the air pollution point of view, you need to consider multiple issues, and you have multiple departments. And now the challenge is how these departments will work together as a team to solve the issues related to the air. Unfortunately, I feel if this is possible, and this is comparatively easy at the city level rather than state level. Okay. So at the city level, the municipal commissioner or a collector can definitely call all the people together, take a good brainstorming, assign some responsibilities, and in that case, it will be comparatively easy to achieve the outcomes in that. So if you see the vehicles, another set, you have vehicle emission norms which have to be designed, and then we have vehicle fitness, PUC and IM, then we have scrapped vehicles. So many scrap vehicles are lying in many cities, and they are not only causing congestion, but they can be cause of dengue, malaria, and whatnot. So, and now luckily we have scrapping vehicle policy. Some of the states like I think Delhi has already notified some scrapping policy. So if the local bodies can clean up this space, it will not only lead to circular economy, reduce air pollution, but at the same time, it will also remove the chances of dengue, malaria, and all other things. And then we have fuel quality and quantity also, because many cities are now getting CNG supplies, and you need to assure sufficient quantity or sufficient supply to avoid the long queues. And then most importantly, we need to have the parking policy. Unless we have a good, robust parking policy, people try to park anywhere and at any time, and that is one. So here also we have multiple departments which will talk to each other. MOEF, MORTH will be responsible for vehicle fitness norms and vehicle emission norms, but RTO will be executing that at the site. Traffic police, district administration, oil companies, and then ULB incentive for cleaner fuels and vehicles. I remember long back in 2005, Pune Municipal Corporation used to provide a substantial subsidy if you convert to the CNG, but now I think it has been removed. I don't know. But yes, ULB can provide incentive. Now we are talking about incentives for the e-vehicles also. Then third is the traffic actually. Here also, you can see the city planning is very important. Develop the central business districts to reduce the mobility. People should not crisscross, or they need not travel for a long distance. So this can be achieved through planning, but we are talking post facto. So how much, I really don't know, but certain areas can always be developed as a city business district. Then road design, width, junctions, surface, service roads. These are very important in traffic management, and this requires a lot of planning activities and inputs from the traffic police. Traffic congestion is another issue which we need to talk about. Public transport policy, scrap vehicle, parking policy, public transport policy, as well as the mobility studies actually for each study are very important for the traffic management. And here also we have multiple stakeholders and others. Another example, construction and solid waste, where issues and agencies are flagged, like material transport, topsoil and construction material. Those who are staying in cities must be aware, if any new construction starts, the entire road surrounding that construction will be just a dumping ground for the topsoil, because the soil will be wet, the trucks will be moving that, and it will be spilled on the roads, causing a lot of dust emissions in the surrounding. So there are enough conditions in the building bylaws as well as environmental conditions. The enforcement is not really good. But if you can create some portal, as we discussed about grievance redressal, people can post those photographs and things can be controlled very easily. And then definitely we must know about our city, how the city will grow in coming days, and accordingly certain planning can be done. And the most important, which is missed actually, Menren, because it is not within the city, is the landfill fires. Most of the cities still have the landfills as one of the standard way of waste disposal, and landfills catch the fire in summer, which is causing significant air pollution in terms of obnoxiousness actually, and so many, I will not call poisonous, but harmful emissions are experienced on that. Here also we have different agencies like building permission, the CR, the ULB, the solid waste cell. They play an important role. But what are the policy issues if you see in a broader way? So we need to think about regional and development plans, work and living balance. Few examples like integrated townships now people are talking about, where you stay within the same campus of your office, so you need not travel. And with Corona, in fact, work from home is a very phenomenal thing which has emerged. So your dependency on the sort of mobility is really significantly reduced. You can just order anything on Zomato or Swiggy. You can book your vegetables. You can, all the payments or the bills can be paid electronically. So the mobility has comparatively reduced. Then secondly, we have the public transport policy and vision document. So that's important, mass transport, how it will be and what could be time frame. And particularly many cities in the country have now undergoing or trying to develop the metros. And I think that construction activity of metro is one of the major source of air pollution also. But at the same time, once it is operated, I think it will help to reduce the air pollution. Then we need to have mobility plan for the city. So you know how the traffic and how the signals can be designed for that, how the public transport can be planned for that mobility actions. And then we have parking policy, sanitation policy, scrapping policy. And as I said, some of the cities are now trying to link it with just transition, and very few cities are trying to link it with the net zero. But this is not really within the present framework of the Clean Action Plan. And then most importantly, which is not really being talked about, is what we are doing with the informal sector, who have their livelihood dependent on this sort of sources of air pollution, so-called sources of air pollution. So we need to integrate those people also in the entire action plan. So when we talk about governance, we have different principles here to talk about, like precautionary principle we have seen, then the proximity principle, which is very important for the air pollution point of view, because the impact of air pollution is felt near the source to the maximum level. Once it goes up or it goes far away, it is diluted. So if you can control the pollution at the source, the impacts will also be reduced significantly. So proximity principle is very well defined. And then we talked about preventive also, like better to prevent at the generation itself, don't allow it to generate. Once it is generated, then you need to treat it or control it in a different way. And then participatory governance, which is inclusive, credible, and well-informed. That's very, very important. We need to include people of different spectra, and then credible information has to be shared with them. They need to be informed from time to time. And if people are involved in the entire process, I'm sure the outcomes will be very, very positive. And the next one is hotspot approach, actually. So as I mentioned, the complaint or grievance redressal is actually a very early finder of the issues. And if you can effectively use that, definitely it will be solved. An hotspot approach is normally adopted in most of the governance model, particularly ULBs and Pollution Control Board generally work on the hotspot, like some complaint comes and then immediately action is taken on that. So how to coordinate? Now, coordination per se at the city level, as I mentioned, is comparatively easy because you have a nodal in charge in terms of the head of the ULB or head of the district, like collector or municipal commissioner, it will be easy for them to coordinate with all the agencies because now it is a mandate. But the role of the ULB level committee is very important because they are the actually knowledge domain at the site, and they will have to tweak the action plan based on the local understanding as well as the local practices. That's very important. There may be certain cultural things, there could be certain historical things which need to be taken into account. It can't be decided from Delhi or at the pollution control board level. And then as I kind of actually showed, this can be further strengthened by thematic subgroup, like road for construction, for traffic. There can be some thematic groups which can work, and then they can report to the ULB level committee or a district level committee. The role of AOR is very critical. They need to be a pivot of the entire action plan, I will say, because science-based information is the only credible thing or only thing which gives the action plan a very good credibility. So unless the AORs are active, they are involved in the QA/QC of the sort of monitoring plans or designing of the action or the performance appraisal of the action, I think that's very important. The SPCBs need to provide technical and legal support. Use of IoT and web-based solutions, that's very important. We are talking about so much of IT strength of our country. We have academic institutions and all portals and everything can be designed properly so that we can identify hotspot, complaint reversal, public information, awareness, student engagement. This can all be done through web-based solutions. And I think every city can take a lead to create some app or something like that, which can be helpful for effective implementation of action plan. And then develop champions in schools. Actually, this one is very important, that you need to get the schools and students on board. They will be the major drivers of the entire action plan. And if it can be done at the local level, this will be a very good, this will bring a lot of coordination actually. Now, just coming few slides on the environment justice, we have few, I think, 10, 12 minutes. So in the environmental justice, I just wanted to bring certain benchmarks, why people are approaching courts actually, because internationally, these benchmarks are well set and they are being not only adopted, but they are sharpened in the Indian context. In fact, Indian PIL system, public interest litigation system, is one of the most liberal way of litigation in the world. It has really played a critical role in environmental conservation and protection. All the court cases before NGTPC, they are PILs. And many of these actions, including what we are talking about today, is the outcome of the judicial actions. And so we must appreciate that thing at the first go. The first, and as we have seen, most importantly, every citizen of the country has a fundamental right to have the clean environment. That's the bottom line. And naturally, once you have a fundamental right, you have opportunity to seek and remedy. Okay. Now, at the international level, we are talking about environmental right. At the international level, the environmental right is also treated as a human right. The UN has already recognized that. So, in fact, it gets two powerful tools for every citizen. One is the environmental right and second is the human right. But as on today, in India, we are talking as only environmental right. So persons affected must get involved in process of sanction. So basically, if an industry is coming next to me, next door to my house, I must be informed or I should be part of the sanctioning process. Sanctioning is actually giving permit. Regulators need to use wide range of sanctions available with them with clear protocol. The most important is clear protocol. So this actually ensures the consistent, transparent, and responsive actions from the pollution. So for one offense, one type of offense, actions can't vary from state to state or from region to region in the pollution. That's very important. So basically, there needs to be a good enforcement protocol, and where actions are directly linked to the seriousness, environmental seriousness of any violation. So enforcement protocol has to be there. And another important feature which is coming up of late is annual report of outcomes of various sanctioning actions. And I'm really happy to note here in this action plan that every year, all of you will have to give a performance report to CPCB in order to get funds. Okay, it's not only just grant, it is performance-based grants. So A, B, C, D will be the very critical components of entire functioning in coming years. And you will be definitely looking into the outcome. And those outcomes have to be substantiated with scientific data, and there could be questions and challenges on the claimed outcomes also. And then importantly, the sanctions or the actions which are taken have to be targeted, inclusive, speedy, deterrent, proportionate. Multiple adjectives are there, but most important is they should be effective. If a complaint goes that somebody is burning some refuse on the street and a complaint goes to the corporation, if somebody reaches within 1 hour and ensure that that fire is doused and the person who has put the fire on is identified and action is taken, I think nothing like that. People will be really happy on that type of thing. So effective actions are very, very important. As I said, uncertainty is part of life in environmental sciences. But there are 3 reasons actually for that. One is we don't have the data. Okay, we don't have the, like the landfill fires. Presently, we don't have the data, what type of air emissions are coming. So we have to consider or imagine something, but we try to fill that gaps. Okay, it doesn't mean that you continue with that lack of data or inadequate models. You have to find out ways to complete that gaps. Okay. Second is indeterminacy, that, okay, we know there are fires, but we are not able to link with the health standards. So this is another basically factor where indeterminacy and ambiguity play an important role. And the third is ignorance, which is actually not acceptable anywhere. But we don't know what we don't know. That's as simple as, okay, we don't know. But all these 3 reasons can be substantially avoided if we prioritize the science and technology options. And in fact, that's why I'm repeatedly saying that AORs will be the pivotal organization for success of this action plan. Polluter action plan, polluter pays principle, I will not go through. You will get the copies of this presentation. But yes, it talks about the person who pollutes, he has to pay. Only thing I just wanted to say here, that in India, we uniquely adopt the absolute liability principle. It means the polluter has a responsibility for all the consequences which has been caused because of his pollution, including loss of life, loss of property, or degradation of environment. So he is responsible for restoration of the environment, including restoration. He is responsible for any damages for the property or a business, any losses to human life, any losses to other livelihood. So practically all the aspects of damage are covered under the absolute liability, unlike the strict liability in case of vehicle accident. Okay, so that's a very important. So now the courts are increasingly asking for remedy, restitution, and compensation with accountability. And at the same time, the rules are also focusing on citizens' responsibility in protection of environment, because we have seen it is our fundamental duty also. So till now, we have action plans and action plans. Today, we are talking about coordination. We are willing to know about how these action plans are being implemented. And I'm sure with this improved stakeholder engagement and talking to each other, as well as performance linked implementation of the action plan, there will be significant improvement in the air quality in coming days. But there are simultaneous things which are going on. One thing is the environmental standards which are being made more and more stringent. The second one I will come just in a minute. Then we have subsidies. If you do good, you will be subsidized. As I gave an example. Pune used to give subsidy for auto rickshaws, which are going for CNG kits. Then communication, a lot of data is in the public domain now, and covenants where industry and regulators sit together and decide on certain roadmap. That's also important. But the most talked about is the economic incentive. Here, in the economic incentives, the polluters are actually, or I will say those who are generating pollution, they are given a choice. If they are reducing the pollution lesser than what they are allowed to do, suppose if I'm permitted to discharge 100 tons of particulate every day in the environment, and if I install the systems, very nice system, and I can reduce that emission to 80, the balance 20, I can sell it to somebody who is not able to do it. So basically monetizing the benefits as well as internalizing the negative externalities. So both the things are being done. We are talking about in invest management, it is coming through EPR. In air pollution, it is coming through what we call as emission trading system. There are multiple ways of going for economic incentive. We are today talking about circular economy approach also. So all these things are happening, and I think if the academic institutions can develop some city-specific model on a theoretical contours, I think it will be a good inputs for them. And then we have complete policy matrix, which is available. Very difficult to achieve very catchy words I have used here, but I'm sure with time, many of them will be definitely playing an important role. The first important is the environmental effectiveness. So if we are talking about any choice, like we are talking about the road cleaning mechanisms, so how effective they are, there has to be certain field testing, not only at the purchase, but maybe after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. So whether with the age, the performance goes down. So environmental effectiveness of any intervention needs to be really assessed in a very scientific manner. Then we need to have a flexible response. It can't be just one-sided response. So depending upon the problem, depending upon the situation, the response has to be tailored one. And that sort of adjustments or modification will require scientific knowledge. So if you're talking about cleaning up roads, how efficient it is, and if you want to improve broom design or something like that, definitely there needs to be flexibility, and that flexibility will come from the scientific analysis and scientific data. Similarly, we need to check about administrative feasibility. That is also important, whether administratively it is feasible. We can suggest something, because in any suggestion or any solution, we have two different layers of feasibility, or rather three, I will call it. The first one is the scientific feasibility, okay, or technical feasibility, what we call it. Then we have financial feasibility, and finally administrative. So normally financial and administrative go together, but yes, it is also important. And then economic efficiency. So if you have resources, like in this action plan, now the performance is dependent on D, okay, reduction of the strength. So I need to put my money where I can get maximum outcome. So that type of policy analysis, if it is available, then it will be easy to go for better outcomes also. And then we have confidence in regulatory environment, because unless and until you, as an important stakeholder, you take very rational, credible, and transparent actions, otherwise people will lose faith in the regulatory environment, and the desired outcomes may not come. And then simple characteristics like equity and level playing field, transparency, and most importantly, innovation. I think I wanted to talk about that again and again, that innovation is the need of a hour. Every action plan, though it is mandated or it is finalized in consultation with CPCB, but it is not really a static document. It is a dynamic document, and with the research, with the field experience, you can always talk about some innovation and then approach SPCB and CPCB for updating or amending this action plan. And I think innovation is really important. The second important is the environmental benchmark. And I think here the SPCB and CPCB will have to play a very, very, very critical role. For example, maybe for roads, we have seen different sources of air pollution. Suppose for roads, maybe Thane has done fantastic work. Okay, I'm just giving the name because I stay in Thane for nothing, no other reason. So if Thane has done the great work in terms of control of air pollution from road-related activities, I think it is necessary that good practices should be shared with everyone. So that benchmarking and showcasing has to be done at the state and national level. If some other corporation does some good work in scrap vehicles, it should be immediately documented, showcased properly, and circulated to all. And I think here also, if the AORs can take a lead role, because any such success stories need to be documented with a lot of technical data. Okay, and if it can be done, the NKN can also support sort of vetting or validating those good practices, and they can be updated in the action plan. So, but that is very, very, and that's the way, that's the learnings what we get it from others, and that should be integrated, embedded in the current practices. And then disclosure and participation I have talked about, and that's it. I think I have completed the lecture right now.